pedal point, suspension, secondary dominant, pivot note, harmony and unison. If any of those 5 musical terms are foreign to you, watch this video. You will know what they mean by the end of the video. Because today we are looking at I Will Never Leave You, I Will Never Go Away from Sideshow. It is one of the most incredibly emotional duets in musical theater history, and that is what we're looking at today here on Music Theater Theory. Whoa! Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Mateo Chavez-Lewis. I'm a professional musical theater composer and music director, and I'm splitting my time right now between here in Toronto and New York City. And I post videos like this all the time on this channel, analyzing the great works of musical theater history. So if that floats your boat, you should subscribe. And if it doesn't float your boat, you should subscribe anyways, because there's plenty of other videos on the channel. So I Will Never Leave You. We start out like this. It's like this very emotional 11 o'clock number duet. And it starts on a very emotional place. If we stood on our tiptoes, we could peek over the sill. Already it's incredibly emotional, right? Like, and the reason is here, this chord. This is like a B flat chord, but instead of this D, we use this C. So that's taking the third note of the chord and replacing it, substituting it with the second note of the scale. So we get this, what's called a sus2 chord. And it just creates a little bit of warmth and emotion and tension. The other thing is this melody here. We're in the key of F major. You can tell because there's one flat, so that means we're either in F major or D minor. And you can tell just by listening to it, it has a very major sound to it. But because we're in F major, the home note is F. That's kind of where the whole melody wants to resolve. So the melody wants to go like, if we stood on our tiptoes, and that would be the end. Instead, we go to this E, which is one note below the F, stood on our tiptoes, and it reaches up to the F, but it doesn't quite get there, right? It just reaches up and then it falls back down. So there's this yearning in the melody, there's something unfinished in the melody, there's tension in the chords. All of these things create a lot of emotion and make us want to get to that big climactic release at the end of the song. We could peek over the sill, and once in a while we would see a girl slowly walking up the hill. And here this is also helping to build that tension, this rising bass line. We're going to see a lot of this throughout the song. We've got G to A to B flat. Notice how it rises up and then to C. So this constant rising in the bass is going to build the tension, and then we're going to release it later in the song with a descending bass line. And we'd think what a sad situation to be outside on your own. It's a sad situation, and there we land on the first time we're hearing this D minor chord. It's a minor chord, and we're hearing it on the line, what a sad situation to be outside on your own. To go through the town with no playmate, to go through life all alone, I will never leave you. Here we have our first secondary dominant. There's a lot of those being used throughout the song. I'm going to define it in just a second. But if you've never heard that term, a secondary dominant is that sound. And we're going to hear it more in a bit. I will never leave you. I will never go away. We were meant to share each moment. There's that B flat sus2 chord again. Beside you is where I, with the descending bass line now to release the tension that we were building up. Beside you is where I will stay. And there's the other secondary dominant. Listen to that. Do you hear how that sound leads so nicely into the chord that comes right after? So that's kind of the whole point of a secondary dominant. Let me talk for a second about what a secondary dominant is if you don't know this term, because it is such a cool musical idea and it appears all over music. Before we talk about secondary dominance, we should probably talk about primary dominance. We should talk about what a dominant is. In any key, so for example, right now we're in F major, the chord that is built up off of the first note of the scale is called the tonic chord, and it feels like home. In F, it starts on F, and then we build it up from there. So that's the F chord. That feels like home. That feels resolved and final in this key. The dominant chord is the fifth note of the scale. So starting here, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The chord built on this note. That's the dominant of F major. And the dominant leads really, really well back to that tonic chord or that home chord that we were just playing before. Do you hear that? Do you hear how satisfying that sound is? So that's why we use the dominant. It's to lead us into the tonic note. Now, what we can do is we can take the dominant from the scale of the chord that we're about to go to and use that dominant chord, even if it doesn't appear in the key we're actually in. We can use that dominant chord to lead us to the next chord. So for example, in the key of F major, I could have a chord progression that goes like this. And we end up on that D minor. So these are all chords that are in the key of F major. We're only using B flat, otherwise we're using all the white notes. That means we're in F major. Right? All of that is in the key of F major. But if we want to use a secondary dominant to get to this D minor chord, we go to the scale of D minor, take that fifth note, build a chord up on that scale degree, and then we have this A chord, which does not appear in the key of F major, but we can use it anyways, even though we're in the key of F major, and it creates this really cool sound because it's outside of the key signature, but it leads so well to the chord that is coming next. So what that sounds like in context is this. Here's A, it's the dominant of D minor, and it leads so nicely to that D minor. And it was the same thing back here with it's the same thing back here with this G. An actual G major chord doesn't appear in the key of F major, but it is the dominant of C. Here's C. There's the fifth note, that is G, so if we build up a chord from there, that is the dominant of C, which means G will always lead very nicely to C. So we're going to C here, which is in the key of F major, but we're getting there using this G, which is not in the key of F major, so it creates that really cool sound again. In context, that sounds like this. Right? Isn't that just lovely? And without it, it just has it lacks a little bit of a pull, a little bit of emotion. Right? It just doesn't have the same feel to it. But then instead when we go to that G major with the B natural in it, oh, it just feels so, so good. So there, that's secondary dominance. Then we go to the chorus again. I will never leave you. Let's look at this again. I will never go away. We were meant to share each moment. Beside you is where I will stay. Evermore and always will be one though we're two. Here's that G again, which leads very nicely to the C. 'Cause I will never leave you. Then we go back to the verse. When the day is filled with shadows that stretch into the night, I am filled with your sweet comfort like morning fills with light. There's the G major again, that secondary dominant. I will never leave you. Here we get a really cool dynamic moment where we get this sudden piano here that crescendos into the chorus. So instead of just going da 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 filled night, I will never leave you, instead of that we get morning fills with light, I will never leave you. It's just so satisfying. I will never go away. We were meant to share each moment. So here another very satisfying thing is happening. It's called a pedal point. I'm keeping my left hand is playing F over and over and over. And that gives the whole song a real anchor for these couple bars. The harmony all around that F is changing. So I'm playing all sorts of different chords in my right hand. But it doesn't matter because that F is constantly pumping out the bass without changing. So that F is called a pedal point, and it creates that sense of anchoring that just really grounds the emotion of the song. We were meant to share each moment. Beside you is where I will stay. Here's that secondary dominant. Evermore and always will be one though we're two. 'Cause I will never leave you. I will never leave you. And then there's a big key change into the end. So this key change is taking us from F major, 1 flat in the key signature, to A flat major, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 flats in the key signature. This is F. We're going to A flat, which is up 1, up 2, up 3 semitones. That's a big jump. A lot of musical theater songs, will just do 1 semitone, and that'll be a big enough key change. But this one we're going up 3 semitones, which is crazy. The way it works, though, is because of this C here. That is called a pivot note. C exists in the key of F major. There's the F major scale, and there's that C, very much a part of the F major scale. C is also a very important note in the A flat major scale because it's the 3rd note of that scale. There's the A flat major scale, and there's that exact same C. Here it is in F major, and here it is in A flat major. So because that C is the same in both keys, when we have a singer sing that C, we can change keys around the singer and it feels a little bit more natural because it's a note that is in both keys. If she went, I will never leave you, I will never leave you, that would be kind of weird. She'd be going to the A flat, which doesn't fit in the key that we're listening to, but because we have that pivot note, I will never leave you, that sounds very normal. Leave you, but then we change the key underneath. Will never leave you. And then we land in A flat. So we use that pivot note to kind of make the key change more seamless by connecting the 2 keys using a common note. It's a very widely used technique, and it's used to amazing effect here, allowing us to jump up 3 semitones, which is so many semitones. Let me stress that. And the last thing I want to point out is the harmony in this finale, because crucially, it's the moments where there is harmony versus the moments where there aren't. Here we have Daisy on the bottom line and Violet on the top line. They're singing kind of echoes of each other. I will never leave you, I will never leave you, I will never go away. And then there's a harmony. Daisy goes, beside you is where I will stay. And then, where I will stay. And then, I guess it's Violet who goes, that's where I will stay evermore and always. Right? It's all mixing up and echoing, and there's harmonies in thirds here. And then into fourths. But then here, this is the important part. They're singing all this stuff. They're echoing each other. It's like very hard to decipher on the sheet music who's singing what. But it's harmony and it's echoes. Then we get to the line, we'll be one though we're two. And look what happens. They sing it together. Daisy goes, we'll be one. And Violet goes, we'll be one. And then they land on the same note and they sing together in perfect unison, one though we're two. Then they split off again, and then they have this epic harmony at the end where it goes, I will never, I will never, I will never leave you. But that harmony is only as powerful as it is because we have this moment of total unison, where they come together and they actually sing the same notes on the word will be one, though we're two. It's such clever writing. It really uses these musical techniques to their fullest effect. I hope you found this interesting. Thank you all so much for watching. And subscribe to my channel and check me out on Patreon if you want to support the channel so I can continue making this kind of analysis. Thank you all so much, and I will see you here next week on Music Theater Theory. Whoa! Peace out, y'all.